Justice Isaiah Carter, a black man in a crisp suit, stood in a Philadelphia courtroom, accused of assault by Sergeant Victor Harlan after a routine traffic stop. Mid-testimony, Harlan lunged, shoving Isaiah, roaring he was lying, assuming him. The petty criminal. Isaiah, unruffled, declared himself a Supreme Court judge, the courtroom gasping, Harlan's face draining of color. The judge ordered Harlan's arrest for contempt, yet Isaiah's trial persisted, his legacy teetering. This racist assault ignited a storm, threatening his judicial throne. What chaos will Isaiah's truth unleash? Before we dive in, share where you're watching from. If you champion justice, hit like and subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is a must-see. Justice Isaiah Carter stepped out of the Philadelphia courthouse into a sweltering 92-degree afternoon. His tailored suit damp with sweat, his heart a crucible of resolve and rage after Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist assault in court. The contempt arrest a fleeting victory, the ongoing assault trial a dark cloud over his Supreme Court judge legacy, the viral video of Harlan's shove fueling a citywide uproar, hashtags demanding justice trending nationwide. Yet Isaiah's calm exterior masked a storm, his judicial throne teetering. The system's bias a weight he'd long fought. His lawyer Miriam Wells, a fierce advocate with a knack for dismantling corrupt cases, secured his bail within hours, a triumph that made Isaiah's shoulders lighten, believing he could clear his name by leveraging his prestigious title. Miriam, urging him to keep his Supreme Court status at the forefront, a shield against Harlan's lies. Her strategy to harness public outrage, giving Isaiah hope as he navigated the courthouse steps, reporters swarming like hornets, their cameras flashing. His every word a potential spark in a city on edge. Isaiah organized a press conference outside City Hall, a grand stone edifice 3 miles from the courthouse, its columns looming as he faced a sea of microphones, his voice steady, denying the assault charges, recounting Harlan's attack, and calling for accountability. The crowd's cheers a warm wave, their signs proclaiming his innocence, making Isaiah believe he'd rallied Philadelphia's heart, his judicial gravitas a beacon, the public's support a bulwark against the system's prejudice. But Harlan's malice was a viper, striking from the shadows, and he leaked doctored dashcam footage from the traffic stop, aired on a local station with ties to his precinct, showing Isaiah allegedly lunging at Harlan, the video manipulated to paint him as a violent aggressor. His judicial robes mocked as a facade, the footage spreading online, shared millions of times, the crowd's cheers turning to jeers, phones buzzing with the clip. Isaiah's hope fracturing as reporters shouted accusations, their questions barbed. Miriam pulling him away, her face taut, whispering that Harlan had allies in the police union, twisting the narrative to bury Isaiah's truth. The media storm exploded, national outlets branding Isaiah a corrupt judge, a black man whose eloquence hid a savage core, the racist stereotype fueling public scorn, Philadelphia's streets simmering with protests, some for Isaiah, others against him, the city a tinderbox, his Supreme Court colleagues issuing a statement distancing themselves, citing ethical concerns, their silence a betrayal that cut deeper than the media's lies, leaving Isaiah's legacy dangling by a thread, his reinstatement uncertain, the judicial system's impartiality a myth exposed. Back at his elegant townhouse 5 miles from City Hall, Isaiah pored over legal files, his mind racing to counter Harlan's assault, and discovered a pattern in Harlan's record, a trail of arrests targeting black professionals, doctors, lawyers, each case marked by fabricated charges and coerced witnesses, a systemic rot that ignited Isaiah's fury, his hands clenching as he vowed to expose the corruption, his judicial oath a fire in his veins. He compiled a dossier, meticulously documenting Harlan's victims, and sent it to a civil rights group, believing their advocacy would amplify his case, his pulse quickening with the prospect of justice, the dossier a sword to wield against Harlan's empire. But Harlan's influence was a suffocating fog, and he bribed a former arrestee, Jamal Pierce, a desperate man with a family to feed, to testify that Isaiah had assaulted Harlan during the stop, the lie backed by forged medical records showing Harlan's injuries, the new evidence escalating Isaiah's charges to aggravated assault, a felony that could strip his judgeship and land him in prison for 7 years, the prosecutor's smirk mirroring Harlan's, Isaiah's dreams, of exoneration crumbling like ash. Isaiah thought he could endure. But that night, as he sat in his study, the sound of shattering glass pierced the silence, his front door splintered by vandals who spray-painted racist slurs across his walls, jagged words like knives slicing into his soul, furniture upended, family photos of his son Caleb defaced, a brick through the window bearing a note, "Quit or die," the threat chilling Isaiah's blood, its anonymity a hallmark of Harlan's reach. He called the police, but the responding officers, Harlan's cronies, dismissed the vandalism as a prank, their laughter mocking Isaiah's pleas, leaving him to scrub the slurs alone, his hands shaking, each stroke a battle against despair. Miriam arriving, her eyes wide with horror, urging him to relocate. But Isaiah refused, his pride a fortress, though doubt gnawed, the isolation of vice. The civil rights group, pressured by Harlan's allies, shelved the dossier, their silence a fresh wound, and Isaiah's bail conditions tightened, a curfew and travel ban caging him, the aggravated charges a ticking clock. The trial set for 4 weeks away. Philadelphia's heat a mirror of the city's tension, the media's lies, Jamal's testimony, and the vandalism a triple blow, each steeped in racial venom. Harlan's empire a machine grinding Isaiah's. Legacy, his fight for justice a solitary stand. The system's prejudice a labyrinth, each turn a trap. Harlan's next move a shadow, Isaiah's resolve a flickering flame, his townhouse a battleground, the city a crucible, his every breath a defiance against a system that thrived on his destruction. Justice Isaiah Carter paced his Philadelphia townhouse, the faint stench of paint lingering from scrubbing racist slurs off his walls, his heart a furnace of defiance and despair after Sergeant Victor Harlan's relentless assaults, the doctored dashcam footage, the media's venom and the vandalism that scarred his home, the aggravated assault charges a noose tightening around his Supreme Court judge legacy, the city's pulse a restless drumbeat, the curfew and travel ban a cage, each step a battle against a system steeped in racial prejudice. The media's portrayal of him as a corrupt black judge gnawed at his dignity, but Isaiah refused to yield, his judicial oath a beacon, his mind fixed on exposing Harlan's pattern of targeting black professionals, the dossier he'd sent to. The civil rights group a silent hope, though their inaction stung. A wound deepened by the Supreme Court's silence, their ethical distance a betrayal that echoed the city's growing divide. Isaiah reached out to a local activist group, Philly Justice Now, led by Marcus Reed, a charismatic organizer who'd rallied against police brutality, believing their shared outrage could shift public perception. Marcus's fiery speeches a spark, Isaiah's chest lightening as they planned a protest outside the police headquarters, a stark concrete building 4 miles from his townhouse, its flag limp in the 93-degree heat, the event a chance to reclaim his narrative. His judicial stature a rallying cry. The protest swelled, hundreds gathering, their banners demanding justice, their voices a thunderclap. Isaiah speaking with measured gravitas, denying the charges, exposing Harlan's corruption, the crowd's applause a lifeline, their unity, a shield against the media's lies, making Isaiah believe he'd reignited Philadelphia's conscience, his legacy a flame rekindled, the city's heart beating with his cause. But Harlan's cunning was a blade, slicing through hope, and his undercover operatives posing as protesters ignited violence, hurling Molotov cocktails, shattering windows, the protest spiraling into a riot, police in riot gear descending, their batons swinging, tear gas choking the air. Isaiah's vision blurring as officers tackled him, their cuffs biting his wrists, arresting him for inciting a riot, the crowd's cheers turning to screams, his triumph crushed, the protests, chaos a trap sprung by Harlan's malice, the racist narrative painting Isaiah as a black instigator, the media pouncing, their headlines vicious, his judicial title mocked as a fraud, the city a cauldron of rage. Dragged to a precinct, Isaiah faced a new charge, his bail revoked by a judge with ties to Harlan's union, the courtroom a sterile arena where fairness was a ghost, and he was remanded to jail, the cell's steel door slamming shut. A death. Knell to his freedom, the trial now a distant spectre, its jury yet to be chosen, but Isaiah's mind raced, Replaying the riot's collapse, a glimmer of hope emerging when he overheard a guard, a rookie named Malik Hayes, muttering about Harlan's corruption, hinting at a hidden logbook of bribes in the precinct's basement, a lead that made Isaiah's pulse hammer, believing he could expose Harlan, his voice low as he befriended Malik, earning his trust over late-night talks. Malik agreeing to slip a note to Miriam, Isaiah's lawyer, detailing the logbook's location, a plan that felt like a lifeline. Isaiah's hope a fragile spark, convinced he was close to breaking Harlan's grip. But Harlan's paranoia was a living shadow, his spies catching Malik's hesitation, and he framed the rookie for stealing evidence, planting a forged report in his locker. Malik fired, his credibility shattered, the note never reaching Miriam. Isaiah's plan in ruins, his cell a 6-by-8-foot cage, the flickering light mocking his despair, the betrayal a fresh wound, the system's racial bias a vice, Harlan's allies ensuring no crack in their armor. Harlan's cronies in the district attorney's office moved swiftly, pushing for an accelerated trial, and Isaiah learned the jury was rigged, selected by a prosecutor loyal to Harlan, their biases clear in pre-trial hearings, their glances cold, each a reminder of the prejudice woven into the system's fabric. The trial set for 3 weeks away, a guillotine looming, Philly Justice Now's members turning away, Marcus claiming the riot's fallout endangered their cause, his abandonment, a knife in Isaiah's gut, the media doubling down, branding Isaiah a riot leader, a black judge whose authority was a sham, the racist lies fueling public hate, Isaiah's townhouse seized under a civil forfeiture claim tied to the charges, leaving him homeless if freed, his legacy a fading echo, Caleb's face haunting his dreams, his son's safety a prayer against Harlan's wrath, the riot, Malik's ruin, and the rigged jury a triple blow, each steeped in racial venom. Harlan's empire a machine grinding Isaiah's hope, his fight for justice a solitary stand, the system a labyrinth, each turn a trap, Harlan's next move a spectre, Isaiah's cell a crucible, his resolve a flickering flame, the city a battleground, his every breath a defiance against a system that thrived on his destruction. Have you ever stood for truth only to be betrayed by those you trusted, or felt a system's weight crush your voice, demanding you fight harder? Comment number 1. If you believe Isaiah's battle exposes the rot of racial injustice, hit like and subscribe to follow his fight. What desperate step will Isaiah take to escape Harlan's legal snare? Justice Isaiah Carter sat in a Philadelphia jail cell, the cold steel bars a stark contrast to his judicial robes, his heart a tempest of resolve and anguish after Sergeant Victor Harlan's relentless racist assaults, the protest turned riot, Malik's betrayal, and the rigged jury looming over his aggravated assault trial, each injustice a barbed wire around his Supreme Court judge legacy, the city's tension a pulse echoing his own, the media's portrayal of him as a black rioter searing his dignity, yet Isaiah's spirit held firm, his oath to uphold justice, a flicker in the dark, his son Caleb's safety a constant prayer against Harlan's wrath. A glimmer of hope emerged when his lawyer, Miriam Wells, secured a new bail hearing, her relentless advocacy swaying a new judge, Clara Nguyen, a Vietnamese-American jurist known for resisting police pressure, her reputation for impartiality, making Isaiah's chest ease, believing he might walk free again. The courtroom's mahogany benches creaking as Miriam argued his innocence, citing Harlan's history of framing black professionals, her voice a blade cutting through the prosecutor's objections. Clara's nod a lifeline, the humid 94-degree air thick with anticipation, the gallery's murmurs a mix of hope and doubt. Isaiah's tailored suit a reminder of his stature, though his curfew and travel ban chafed like shackles. Clara granted bail, setting it at $150,000, a steep but surmountable hurdle, and Isaiah's allies in the legal community rallied, their donations humbling him as he stepped out of the jail into a muggy dusk. Philadelphia's skyline a jagged promise, believing he could dismantle Harlan's lies, his judicial authority a shield to wield, Miriam's plan to counter the media's racist narrative fueling his resolve. Miriam connected Isaiah with a forensic analyst, Dr. Lena Patel, a brilliant scientist with a knack for debunking tampered evidence, who agreed to analyze the doctored dashcam footage that had derailed Isaiah's press conference, her Lab 6. Miles from the courthouse, a hive of monitors and algorithms. Lena's report uncovering pixel artifacts proving the video was manipulated, a breakthrough that made Isaiah's pulse race, convinced this evidence would clear his name, his hope. A rising tide, the reporter soared to swing against Harlan's corruption. Isaiah coordinated with a local TV station, Philly News Now, to broadcast Lena's findings. Standing before their studio's bright lights, his voice resonant as he presented the report, detailing Harlan's tampering, the anchor's grave nod, amplifying his truth. The broadcast airing to thousands, sparking renewed protests outside the precinct, their chants a chorus for justice. Isaiah believing he'd shattered the racist lies, the public's outrage a bulwark, his legacy aflame, rekindled, Philadelphia's heart beating with his cause. But Harlan's venom was a coiled serpent, striking with precision, and he targeted Caleb, Isaiah's 18-year-old son, a freshman at Temple University, orchestrating a setup where campus police arrested him for vandalism, planting spray, paint cans in his dorm, the charge a cruel mirror of Isaiah's framing, Caleb's frantic call from a holding cell breaking Isaiah's heart, a calculated blow to force his surrender, the racist undertone clear in the officer's sneers, their assumption of Caleb's guilt, a reflection of Harlan's prejudice. Isaiah rushed to the university, 7 miles across town, his hands trembling as he met Caleb, his son's eyes defiant but scared, and vowed to protect him, guilt gnawing as he realized Harlan's attack was retaliation for the broadcast, the systems bias of Ice tightening, Caleb's future now a pawn in Harlan's game. Isaiah urged Lena to upload the report to a secure cloud, believing it would safeguard their proof. But Harlan's operatives, tech-savvy mercenaries with precinct ties, hacked the server overnight, corrupting the data, replacing it with nonsense. Lena's face ashen as she reported the loss, Isaiah's hope splintering like glass, the report now useless, his triumph erased, the protests wavering as public trust faltered, the media seizing the hack to question Isaiah's credibility, their racist narrative doubling down, branding him a desperate liar, a black judge whose authority was a sham. Harlan's malice surged, leaking a fabricated story to a tabloid, accusing Isaiah of bribing Judge Clara with illicit funds, the lie backed by forged bank transfers, the headline screaming judicial corruption, tainting the bail hearings. Legitimacy. Clara forced to recuse herself under pressure, replaced by Judge Ronald Baxter, a hardliner with a history of favoring prosecutors who swiftly denied Isaiah's bail, citing the bribery allegations, the courtroom's air thick with betrayal as Isaiah was cuffed again, his freedom snatched. Baxter's gavel a hammer, the gallery's gasps a fading echo. Baxter ordered Isaiah transferred to a notorious detention center, ironclad 9 miles outside Philadelphia, its reputation for brutality chilling Isaiah's blood, the guards' smirks as he arrived mirroring Harlan's, their slurs a daily. Ritual? The cell a 6-by-9-foot crypt, its flickering light mocking his despair. Caleb's arrest, the hacked evidence, and the bribery lie a triple blow, each laced with racial venom, Harlan exploiting stereotypes to bury Isaiah, the system's prejudice a guillotine, the media's lies a noose, Philadelphia a cauldron of hate, the trial now weeks away, a rigged circus, Isaiah's legacy, a fading spark, Miriam's promise, to appeal a distant hope, Caleb's safety a prayer, the detention center a new battlefield, Harlan's next trap a shadow, Isaiah's fight for justice a solitary stand, his resolve a flickering flame, the city a crucible, each breath a defiance, against a system that thrived on his destruction. Justice Isaiah Carter shuffled into Ironclad Detention Center, 9 miles outside Philadelphia, the clang of steel gates sealing him into a 6-by-9-foot cell, the air rank with sweat and despair, his infected shoulder wound throbbing, the weight of Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist crusade a boulder on his chest, Caleb's framing, the hacked evidence, and the rigged bail denial fresh wounds, each a testament to a system weaponizing his blackness, his Supreme Court judge legacy, a fading star. The trial 3 weeks away, a guillotine sharpened by Harlan's lies. Yet Isaiah's resolve burned, his judicial oath a spark, his son's courage a prayer against the darkness, the media's portrayal of him as a black rioter. A daily lash, the detention center's walls a crucible testing his spirit, the guards' slurs a constant echo of Harlan's hatred, their batons gleaming with menace, each day a gauntlet of racial prejudice, the system's bias a noose tightening, Isaiah's hidden judicial stature a secret he guarded, its power a dormant flame in a world that saw him as a criminal. In the mess hall, amid the clatter of trays and the stench of stale food, Isaiah met Jamal Tate, a lean inmate with a jagged scar, serving time for a robbery he swore was a setup, his story mirroring Isaiah's framing, a bond that kindled hope. Jamal whispering he'd overheard guards discussing Harlan's corruption, a cache of bribe receipts stashed in the precinct, a lead that made Isaiah's pulse quicken, believing they could smuggle this intel to Miriam, his lawyer, still fighting. Despite the system's chokehold, her resolve a distant beacon. So for hushed talks in the cell block's dim corners, Isaiah and Jamal crafted a plan. Jamal slipping a coded note into a laundry bag bound for the outside, addressed to Miriam, detailing the receipt's location, Isaiah's heart racing, convinced. This could break Harlan's empire. A flicker of triumph. His first real hope since the courtroom assault 6 weeks ago. The detention center's brutality, a shadow he could outrun. His judicial mind mapping the next steps, believing their plan was airtight, the note a key to unlock his freedom. But Harlan's paranoia was a living beast, its eyes everywhere, and he'd coerced Jamal with threats to his family, forcing him to betray Isaiah, planting a packet of contraband tobacco in Isaiah's cell during a routine inspection. The discovery. Swift guards dragging Isaiah to solitary confinement. A pitch-black 4x5 foot box, the walls closing in, time dissolving into a void, his body aching from their rough handling, their racist slurs of venom seeping into his soul, the betrayal. A knife twisting, his hope snuffed, the note's fate unknown, solitary a tomb where despair reigned. Isaiah's thoughts spiraling, Caleb's voice a haunting echo, the system's prejudice a weight crushing his spirit. Yet he clung to a stubborn spark, believing he'd salvaged a chance by scratching a message onto a tray, begging a janitor to reach Miriam, a desperate act. His hope a fragile thread convinced he'd outsmarted Harlan's trap. But Harlan's reach was a suffocating tide, and his operatives ambushed Miriam outside her office. 3 masked men beating her into a coma, her briefcase shredded, any trace of Isaiah's message burned, the hospital's cold halls a grim monument to Harlan's ruthlessness. News of the attack filtering to Isaiah through a guard's mocking whisper, his chest collapsing with guilt. Another ally silenced, the system's racial bias a steel trap, Harlan's empire impenetrable, Miriam's fight for him extinguished. The detention center a maze of betrayal, each corner a threat. Isaiah's hope a fading ember, his body weakening, the wound festering, his legacy a distant dream. Harlan's cruelty surged, spreading rumors through Ironclad that Isaiah was a snitch, a lie that turned inmates against him, their glares sharpening into threats, the yard a battlefield, every step a gamble, and on a stifling 91-degree morning, 4 inmates cornered Isaiah, their fists and makeshift blades flashing, their slurs echoing the guards' hatred, Isaiah fighting back, his judicial composure giving way to survival instinct, his training from years of legal battles, guiding his dodges. But a shank grazed his side, blood soaking his jumpsuit, his survival a miracle owed to a guard's grudging intervention, the attack leaving him battered, his body a canvas of pain, his spirit teetering, Caleb's face a lifeline, Miriam's coma a weight, the solitary stint, her assault, and the inmate attack a triple blow, each steeped in racial malice, Harlan exploiting the prison's systemic prejudice to break Isaiah, the system a guillotine, the media's lies a noose, Philadelphia a cauldron of hate, the trial a looming specter, Isaiah's legacy a fading spark, the detention center a crucible, his resolve a flickering flame, Harlan's next trap a shadow, the city a battleground, each breath a defiance against a system that thrived on his destruction. Have you ever faced betrayal when you trusted someone to stand with you, or fought against a system that labels you guilty for who you are? Comment number 1. If you believe Isaiah's struggle reveals the truth of racial injustice, hit like, and subscribe to follow his fight. What daring move will Isaiah risk to escape Ironclad's deadly grip? Justice Isaiah Carter crouched in the shadows of Ironclad Detention Center's loading bay, 9 miles from Philadelphia's heart, his breath ragged, the graze on his side from the inmate attack seeping blood through his torn jumpsuit, his infected shoulder wound a fiery ache, the weight of Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist vendetta, a chain around his soul, Caleb's safety, Miriam's coma, and the snitch rumor a relentless tide, the city's manhunt a predator's jaws, his Supreme Court. Judge Legacy a fading ember, the trial 2 weeks away a rigged noose, yet Isaiah's resolve burned, his judicial training sharpening his instincts, his hidden identity a secret flame, its power a desperate hope against a system that branded him a black rioter. A delivery van idled nearby, its driver distracted, and Isaiah seized the chance, slipping into a crate, the wood scraping his wounds as the van rumbled 7 miles toward the city, his heart hammering with the hope of exposing Harlan's corruption, his escape a defiant stand against a system that saw his blackness as guilt. The humid 92-degree night cloaking his flight, Philadelphia's skyline a distant taunt, Isaiah believing he could go public, his judicial stature a sword to wield the city's outrage a shield against Harlan's lies. Emerging in a gritty alley, Isaiah donned a stolen hoodie, his face shadowed, and tracked down Aisha Khan, a tenacious journalist who'd exposed police scandals, finding her in a dive bar 5 miles from the precinct, her wary gaze softening. As Isaiah shared his truth, the courtroom assault, Caleb's framing and Harlan's trail of framed black professionals, his voice low but resolute, convincing her to publish his account, Aisha's laptop humming as she drafted an exposé, linking Harlan's doctored footage to precinct bribes, the story hitting online, spreading like wildfire, igniting protests outside City Hall, their chants a roar for justice, Isaiah believing. He'd turned the tide, the public's fury a fortress, his legacy a flame rekindled, Philadelphia's pulse beating with his cause. But Harlan's malice was a hydra, each blow spawning worse, and he branded Isaiah a fugitive terrorist, his face plastered on every screen, the label a racist dog whistle painting him as a threat, the protests meant to champion him drawing riot. Police, their shields clashing, the chaos spun by Harlan's media allies as Isaiah's doing, his triumph souring, the city's streets a battlefield, tear gas clouding the air, Aisha shaken but vowing to dig deeper, her exposé a spark in a storm, Isaiah's hope clinging to her resolve, believing her voice could amplify his truth. But Harlan's operatives moved faster, bribing Aisha's editor with $60,000 to retract the story, replacing it with a statement disavowing Isaiah, claiming he'd forged evidence, the betrayal a sledgehammer, Isaiah's story. Erased, the protests faltering, public trust crumbling, the media doubling down, branding him a black liar, his judicial title a sham, the racist narrative fueling hate, Philadelphia a cauldron of division, the Supreme Court issuing a formal suspension of Isaiah's judgeship, a televised statement declaring him a fraud, the disavowal a knife in his gut, his identity stripped, his legacy a fading spark, the system's prejudice a steel trap, the city's outrage turning against him, protests morphing into riots, their purpose twisted, Isaiah's fight a flickering candle in a gale. Isaiah fled to a safe house, a dilapidated row house 4 miles from downtown, arranged by a loyal activist believing he could regroup, his mind racing to salvage proof of Harlan's corruption, the bribe receipts Jamal mentioned haunting his thoughts, his fingers trembling as he scoured Aisha's retracted files, finding fragments of precinct data, a digital trail to Harlan's accounts, believing he'd found a lead. The safe houses, peeling walls closing in, the humid air thick with dread, his wounds aching, Caleb's safety a prayer, Miriam's coma a weight, the system's bias a noose, Isaiah's hope a fragile thread, convinced he could strike back. But Harlan's reach was a suffocating fog, his operatives tracking Isaiah's digital footprint, and as he sent the data to a new contact, a black SUV screeched outside, its doors bursting open, 5 mercenaries storming the safe house, their boots splintering the floor, rifles drawn, their slurs echoing the prison guards. Isaiah diving behind a table, his judicial training guiding him through a hail of gunfire, glass shattering, his lungs burning as he crawled to a back exit. But the mercenaries torched the row house, flames, devouring the walls, an explosion from a gas tank knocking Isaiah into the alley, his side bleeding anew, the safe house a pyre, his evidence ash, the terrorist label, Aisha's betrayal, and the ambush a triple blow, each steeped in racial venom, Harlan twisting Isaiah's fight into a narrative of chaos, the system's prejudice a guillotine, Philadelphia a labyrinth of danger, Isaiah stumbling through the night, the city's pulse a distant roar, Caleb's face his only anchor, his fight for justice a fugitive's gamble, Harlan's mercenaries closing in, their drones buzzing, the Supreme Court's disavowal a final betrayal, Isaiah's survival a miracle, his hidden identity a fading hope, the city a trap, each shadow a threat, Harlan's next move a spectre, Isaiah's resolve a flickering flame, his every breath a defiance against a system that thrived on his destruction. Justice Isaiah Carter limped through Philadelphia's rain-drenched alleys, the searing pain in his side and shoulder wounds a constant throb, his blood-soaked jumpsuit clinging to his skin, the ghost of the safe house inferno, and Sergeant Victor. Harlan's racist manhunt a relentless shadow, Caleb's safety and Miriam's coma a crushing weight, the city's wanted posters branding him a black terrorist, his suspended Supreme Court judge title a shattered crown, the trial a fading spectre. Yet Isaiah's resolve was a steel wire, his judicial training a compass, his hidden identity a dormant spark, its power a desperate hope against a system that thrived on his destruction. The humid 90-degree night a suffocating veil, Philadelphia's skyline a mocking silhouette, Isaiah's fight for justice a fugitive's vow, each step a gamble with death, Harlan's mercenaries prowling, their drones a distant hum, the city a labyrinth of betrayal, Isaiah's body weakening, his wounds festering, but his heart burned for Caleb, his son's courage a lifeline, the memory of Aisha's betrayal and the Supreme Court's disavowal a fresh wound, the system's prejudice a guillotine, Isaiah's legacy a fading star, yet he pressed on, driven by a vow to expose Harlan's corruption, the bribe receipts, haunting his thoughts, a key to dismantle an empire built on racial injustice, Isaiah's mind racing, his breath ragged, the alley's grit a testament to his endurance, a flicker of hope guiding him to a derelict warehouse 3 miles from the precinct, its rusted beams a refuge where he found Lena Morris, a rogue prosecutor. With a steely gaze and a history of challenging corrupt cops, her files brimming with proof of Harlan's election tampering, a bombshell tying him to a rigged mayoral race, Lena's grit a beacon, Isaiah believing their alliance could topple Harlan, her evidence a sword to wield, his pulse hammering as they devised a plan to infiltrate the district attorney's office, a sleek glass building 2 miles away, to steal physical records confirming the digital proof. Isaiah's judicial acumen guiding their strategy, his hope surging as they slipped past security under a starless sky, the office's humming silence broken by their careful steps, Lena's lockpicking skills cracking a safe, the records heavy with Harlan's sins, Isaiah believing they'd secured victory, his chest swelling with the prospect of justice, the city's pulse a distant drumbeat, the records a key to unlock his freedom, a triumph after weeks of torment, his legacy a flame rekindled, Philadelphia's conscience within reach, the system's cracks exposed, Isaiah's fight a spark in the dark, believing they'd outmaneuvered Harlan's empire, the evidence a shield against the racist lies, Lena's resolve a mirror of his own, their alliance a fortress, the night a canvas for their rebellion, Isaiah's wounds a dull ache, his heart fixed on Caleb, the trial a distant threat, the system's prejudice a storm he could weather, believing their plan was ironclad, the records a guillotine for Harlan's reign, Isaiah's hope a rising tide, convinced he'd turned the tide, the city's outrage a tide to carry him, his judicial oath a fire in his veins, the warehouse a fleeting sanctuary, Lena's files a map to justice, Isaiah's fight a warrior's stand, believing he'd won, his legacy a beacon, the system's rot laid bare, Philadelphia's heart a battlefield he could claim, the night. A promise of redemption, Isaiah's resolve a steel thread, his every breath a defiance against a system that thrived on his destruction, yet Harlan's paranoia was a living beast, its claws ever sharp, and his mole in the DA's office. A clerk named Ethan Cole triggered a silent alarm, sealing the building in a lockdown. Steel shutters slamming down, trapping Isaiah and Lena in a maze of flickering corridors. Their escape cut off, Isaiah's hope fracturing, his triumph a fading spark. The record slipping from his grasp. Lena's face pale, her gun drawn, the alarm's wail a death knell. Isaiah's pulse pounding. The system's prejudice a noose. Harlan's trap sprung. The night a betrayal, Philadelphia a crucible. The city's pulse a roar. Isaiah's fight a flickering candle, believing they could still escape. His judicial mind racing, Lena's resolve. A lifeline. Yet Harlan's operatives were relentless. A squad bursting through a side door, their rifles blazing, bullets ricocheting. Lena returning fire. Her shots precise, but a round struck her chest, her body crumpling, blood pooling. Isaiah dragging her behind a desk, her gasps a countdown, her final words urging him to fight, her death a shattering blow. Isaiah's spirit breaking, the records abandoned as he fled, scaling a vent to the roof, his wounds screaming, his lungs burning, the city's skyline a mocking witness, Lena's blood on his hands, her sacrifice a wound deeper than any blade. Harlan spinning the break-in as Isaiah's terrorist attack, the media swallowing the lie, branding him a cop killer, a black man whose defiance threatened order, the racist narrative fueling a city-wide manhunt, helicopters slicing the night, their spotlights hunting, Isaiah stumbling into a storm drain 4 miles from the DA's office, his hands trembling as he checked the USB drive Lena had given him, finding it corrupted, her death. In vain, Harlan's operatives sabotaging the files remotely, the betrayal a blade in his gut, the evidence ash, the lockdown, Lena's death, and the corrupted files a triple blow, each laced with racial venom, Harlan's empire twisting Isaiah's fight into a narrative of terror, the system's prejudice, a steel cage, Philadelphia a tinderbox, the manhunt a national crusade, Isaiah's survival a miracle, his hidden identity a fading hope, Caleb's safety a prayer, the city a trap, each shadow a threat, Harlan's next move a spectre, Isaiah's resolve a flickering flame, his fight for justice, a fugitive's cry against a system that thrived on his destruction. Have you ever lost an ally who fought for your truth, their sacrifice a fire in your soul? Or faced a system so corrupt it brands you a villain for seeking justice? Comment number 1 if you stand with Isaiah against this racist machine. Hit like and subscribe to follow his battle. What desperate gamble will Isaiah make to expose Harlan's lies? Justice Isaiah Carter, huddled in a Philadelphia storm drain, 4 miles from the district attorney's office, the dank chill seeping into his wounds, his side and shoulder pulsing with pain, Lena's bloodied body, and the corrupted election. Tampering evidence a fresh scar, the city's manhunt a relentless beast, Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist vendetta, a fire consuming his Supreme Court judge legacy, Caleb's safety and Miriam's coma haunting his every breath, the system's prejudice a steel blade, his suspended judgeship a broken scepter. Yet Isaiah's resolve was a flint, sparking defiance, his judicial training a lifeline, his hidden identity a smoldering ember, its power a desperate hope against a world that branded him a black terrorist, the humid 91-degree night a suffocating shroud, Philadelphia's skyline a distant taunt, the trial a fading spectre, Isaiah's fight for justice a fugitive's oath, each step a dance with death, Harlan's mercenaries prowling, their radios crackling, the city a maze of betrayal, Isaiah's body faltering, his wounds festering, but his heart clung to Caleb, his son's courage a beacon, the media's lies and the Supreme Court's disavowal a daily lash, Isaiah's legacy a fading star, yet he pressed on, driven to expose Harlan's corruption, the bribe receipts a ghost in his mind, a key to dismantle, a racist empire. Isaiah's thoughts racing, his breath shallow, the drained slime a testament to his endurance, a flicker of hope guiding him to a shuttered print shop 3 miles from City Hall, its dusty presses a refuge where he tapped a weak Wi-Fi signal, his fingers trembling as he contacted a hacker contact, Zara Lynn, a reclusive prodigy who'd once exposed corporate fraud, her encrypted chat a lifeline, Isaiah believing a public revelation could shift the tide, his judicial stature a sword. To wield, Zara agreeing to help him hack a news station, WPVI, to broadcast his truth, revealing his Supreme Court judge identity and Harlan's corruption. A daring gambit that made Isaiah's chest tighten, convinced this could sway Philadelphia, Lena's sacrifice urging him forward. The city's outrage a shield against Harlan's, lies Isaiah's hope a rising tide, believing he'd reclaim his legacy. The system's cracks exposed, his fight a spark in the dark, Zara's code infiltrating WPVI's broadcast system, Isaiah's face appearing on screens during the evening. News. The anchor stunned as he spoke, his voice resonant, declaring his judgeship, exposing Harlan's courtroom assault, Caleb's framing, and the precinct's bribe network, his words igniting a firestorm. Protests erupting outside the station, their chants shaking the 90-degree dusk, thousands rallying, their signs demanding justice, Isaiah believing he'd shattered Harlan's empire, the public's roar a fortress, his legacy a flame rekindled, Philadelphia's heart beating with his cause, the system's prejudice a storm he could weather, his judicial oath a fire in his veins, the print shop a fleeting sanctuary, Isaiah's wounds a dull ache, his heart fixed on Caleb, the trial a distant threat, believing he'd won, the city's pulse a drumbeat for truth, yet Harlan's cunning was a guillotine, slicing through triumph, and he unleashed a deep-fake video, aired minutes after Isaiah's broadcast, showing Isaiah confessing to assault, the footage so flawless, it fooled even Zara, the anchor pivoting to denounce Isaiah, the protests fracturing, confusion spreading, Harlan's media allies amplifying the fake, branding him a liar. A black judge whose eloquence masked a criminal core, the racist narrative reigniting public scorn. Philadelphia's streets simmering with division, Isaiah's hope crumbling, his broadcast a boomerang, the system's prejudice a noose, his legacy a fading spark, Harlan escalating his assault, his operatives storming Caleb's safehouse 6 miles away, kidnapping him in a black van, Caleb's muffled cries a dagger in Isaiah's nightmares, a ransom note sent to Isaiah's burner phone demanding surrender by midnight, or Caleb would die. The threat a hammer to his soul, Isaiah refusing to yield, believing he could save his son, his mind racing to track the van's signal with Zara's. Help! Their digital hunt a desperate race, the print shop's flickering lights mocking his dwindling options, the city's pulse a roar, Isaiah's fight a flickering candle. Yet Harlan's operatives were phantoms, anticipating defiance, and they leaked Caleb's kidnapping to the press, spinning a story that Isaiah had abandoned his son to fuel his terrorist agenda, the headlines vicious, accusing him of orchestrating the abduction, the betrayal a blade in his gut, his love for Caleb weaponized. The media's racist lies a tidal wave, the public's outrage turning to hatred, protests morphing into riots, their purpose twisted, the Supreme Court issuing a televised statement disowning Isaiah entirely, declaring his judgeship a fraud, a move orchestrated by Harlan's allies, the announcement shattering his last shred of legitimacy, his identity a curse, Philadelphia a cauldron of chaos, Isaiah fleeing the print shop, his lungs burning as sirens wailed, Zara's connection severed when her hideout was raided, her gear smashed by Harlan's mercenaries, leaving Isaiah alone, his burner phone dying, the GPS lead a dead end, Caleb's fate a void, the deepfake, Caleb's kidnapping, and the Supreme Court's disownment a triple blow, each steeped in racial venom, Harlan twisting Isaiah's fight into a narrative of terror, the system's prejudice a steel cage, the city a labyrinth of danger, Isaiah hiding in a rusted shed, 2 miles from the river, his body aching, his wounds bleeding, Lena's dying words echoing, urging him to fight, but despair clawed, the trial a guillotine, Caleb's life a thread, Harlan's mercenaries closing in, their drones buzzing, the city a trap, each shadow a threat, Isaiah's resolve a flickering flame, his fight for justice a fugitive's cry against a system that thrived on his destruction. Justice Isaiah Carter crouched in a rusted shed, 2 miles from Philadelphia's riverfront, the humid 93-degree night a suffocating cloak, his wounds seeping, the agony of Caleb's kidnapping, and Sergeant Victor Harlan's deep fake, betrayal a fire in his bones, the city's manhunt a relentless predator, the Supreme Court's disownment a blade through his legacy, Miriam's coma and Lena's death haunting his every step, the system's prejudice a steel trap, his fight for justice a fugitive's desperate cry. Yet Isaiah's resolve was a tempered blade, his judicial training a lifeline, his hidden Supreme Court judge identity a buried spark, its power a fading hope against a world that branded him a black terrorist. The trial a distant guillotine, Isaiah's body faltering, his side and shoulder wounds festering, but his heart clung to Caleb, his son's courage a beacon, the media's racist lies a daily scourge, Philadelphia a cauldron of chaos, Isaiah's legacy a fading ember. Yet he pressed on, driven to save Caleb and expose Harlan's corruption. The bribe receipts a ghost in his mind, a key to dismantle a racist empire. Isaiah's thoughts racing, his breath shallow. The shed's oil-soaked floor a testament to his endurance, a flicker of hope guiding him to trace a faint GPS signal from Caleb's phone, a breadcrumb left by Harlan's operatives, leading to a derelict warehouse 5 miles away. Isaiah's pulse hammering, believing he could rescue his son, his fugitive status a death sentence if caught, the city's pulse a roar, his fight a spark in the dark. Isaiah contacting a hacker group, Cyberdawn, a clandestine collective who'd evaded Harlan's reach, their leader Kai, a sharp-witted coder with a vendetta against corrupt cops, agreeing to stage a rescue. Their encrypted comms a lifeline, Isaiah believing he'd regained control, his judicial mind mapping the warehouse's layout, its sagging rafters a grim fortress, the night a canvas for rebellion, his wounds a dull ache, his heart fixed on Caleb, the system's prejudice a storm he could weather, believing their plan was ironclad, the rescue a chance to reclaim his son, Isaiah's hope a rising tide, convinced he'd outwitted Harlan, the city's outrage a tide to carry him, his judicial oath a fire in his veins, yet under a moonless sky. Isaiah and Cyberdawn infiltrated the warehouse, their steps silent, Kai's drones disabling cameras, Caleb's muffled cries guiding them through rusted corridors, Isaiah finding his son, bound but defiant, his eyes flashing with hope, Isaiah's heart soaring as he cut him free, believing he'd won. The rescue a fleeting triumph, their escape a sprint through a maze of crates, drones buzzing overhead, Cyberdawn's tech a shield, Isaiah shielding Caleb, his body a barrier, believing they'd escaped Harlan's trap, his love a desperate fortress, the night a promise of redemption, Isaiah's resolve a steel thread, collapsing in a safe house 3 miles away, a crumbling tenement, Caleb's trembling breath a miracle, their reunion a spark, Isaiah believing he'd secured victory, his legacy a flame rekindled, the system's cracks exposed, Philadelphia's heart a battlefield he could claim. Yet Harlan's malice was a tidal wave, crashing over triumph, and Isaiah debriefed Kai, uncovering Harlan's plan to rig a gubernatorial election, funneling bribe money to a candidate to shield his network, a scheme laid bare in Cyberdawn's intercepted emails, Isaiah seeing a chance to expose it, leaking the emails to Congressman Jamal Evans, a reformist with a history of battling corruption, his office 2 miles from the safe house. His promise to investigate making Isaiah believe he'd secured a powerful ally, his hope a candle in a gale, the city's pulse a drumbeat for truth, believing he'd turned the tide, the system's prejudice a storm he could weather, his fight a spark in the dark, yet Harlan's operatives were phantoms, their trap sprung, assassinating Congressman Evans in his office, a sniper's bullet through his window, his body found hours later, the murder pinned on Isaiah, a forged manifesto in his name flooding the media, accusing him of killing to destabilize the state, the racist narrative painting him as a black terrorist mastermind, the public's outrage a noose, protests turning against him, their signs demanding his capture, Philadelphia a tinderbox, Isaiah's hope crumbling, his alliance with Evans a fatal misstep, the system's prejudice a guillotine, Harlan's empire twisting his fight into a narrative of terror, the media's lies a tidal wave, yet Harlan's operatives escalated, exposing Cyberdawn's network, their safe houses raided, Kai and his team arrested, their gear seized, the collective's collapse a gut punch, Isaiah's allies erased, the safe house no longer secure, Caleb's safety a fleeting illusion, Harlan filing terrorism charges against Isaiah, the accusation a death knell, broadcast nationwide, the media claiming he'd orchestrated a conspiracy against the government, his blackness a scapegoat, the Supreme Court's disownment a footnote. The public convinced he was a traitor, the rescue, Evans' assassination, and Cyberdawn's collapse a triple blow, each steeped in racial venom, the system a steel cage. Isaiah and Caleb fleeing through a sewer tunnel, their footsteps echoing, his wounds bleeding. Caleb's courage a fragile anchor, despair clawing, the trial a looming execution. Harlan's mercenaries closing in, their drones buzzing. The city a trap, each shadow a threat, Isaiah's resolve a flickering flame, his fight for justice a fugitive's cry against a system that thrived on his destruction. Have you ever risked everything to save someone you love, only to be branded a villain by a corrupt system? Or felt the sting of losing allies to a machine that buries the truth? Comment number 1. If you believe Isaiah's fight exposes the rot of racial injustice, hit like and subscribe to follow his battle. What reckless move will Isaiah make to save Caleb and strike back at Harlan? Justice Isaiah Carter gripped Caleb's hand in a Philadelphia sewer tunnel, the damp chill biting his wounds, his side and shoulder pulsing with pain, the weight of Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist vendetta a crushing tide, Congressman Evans' assassination, Cyberdawn's collapse, and the terrorism charges branding him a black mastermind a fresh torment, the city's manhunt a relentless predator, his disavowed Supreme Court judge title a shattered shield, Miriam's coma and Lena's death haunting his every step. Yet, Isaiah's resolve was a steel anchor, his judicial training a beacon, his hidden identity a buried ember, its power a fading hope against a system that thrived on his destruction, the trial looming tomorrow, a rigged execution. But Isaiah's love for Caleb, his son's trembling courage, and the memory of their allies' sacrifices steeled his heart, his vow to protect Caleb aflame against the system's darkness. The Psalm, humid 92-degree night a suffocating veil, Philadelphia's skyline a distant taunt. Isaiah's fight for justice, a fugitive's desperate cry, knowing Harlan's mercenaries were closing in, their drones buzzing overhead. Isaiah made a desperate choice, surrendering to the police at dawn, believing his judicial status, though tarnished, could sway the jury, his chest tightening as he hugged Caleb, entrusting him to a trusted activist. Sonia, hiding in a safe house 4 miles away, her loyalty a rare spark in a sea of betrayal. Isaiah walking into the precinct, hands raised, the air thick with tension, officers swarming, their cuffs biting his wrists, their slurs echoing Harlan's. Hatred, but Isaiah's composed demeanor unnerved them, his hidden identity a silent weapon. The courthouse 3 miles away his next arena, the city's pulse a roar, Isaiah's legacy a fading star. Yet his hope clung to the trial, believing he could expose Harlan's corruption, the bribe receipts a ghost in his mind, a key to dismantle, a racist empire. Isaiah's thoughts racing, his wounds aching, the precinct's fluorescent lights a harsh glare, his fight a spark in the dark, assigned a new lawyer, Amara Jones, a brilliant advocate who'd battled corrupt DAs. Isaiah felt a flicker of optimism, her sharp mind dissecting Harlan's lies, uncovering fragments of Cyberdawn's election rigging evidence, salvaged from Kai's backups, a bombshell linking Harlan to a gubernatorial candidate. Isaiah believing the courtroom was his chance to strike back, his pulse quickening as Amara prepped him in a holding cell. The trial's opening gavel a thunderclap, the system's prejudice a storm he could weather. His judicial oath a fire in his veins, the courthouse a cavern of marble and justice. Yet Amara's voice cut through the prosecutor's objections, presenting the election rigging evidence, her words a blade, the jury's eyes widening as she exposed Harlan's bribes, the testimony swaying doubters, Isaiah's hope surging, believing he'd cleared his name, the gallery buzzing, a juror, a librarian named Malik, nodding in agreement, a rare ally in a sea of bias. The courtroom's tension electric, Isaiah's tailored suit a reminder of his stature, his legacy a flame rekindled, Philadelphia's heart a battlefield he could claim. Yet Harlan's corruption was a hydra, its heads regrowing, and he bribed a juror, evil in heart, a retired clerk with ties to the police union, planting forged documents in the jury room, claiming Isaiah had hacked the DA's office, the evidence tainting Amara's case, Evelyn's whispers turning jurors against Isaiah, their stares hardening, his triumph slipping like water through his fingers, the system's prejudice a noose. Amara fighting back, cross-examining a precinct witness, exposing flaws in Harlan's deepfake, and Malik, the librarian, questioned the forged document's authenticity, his doubt a spark. Isaiah believing he'd regained ground, the courtroom's air crackling, the judge's gavel a heartbeat. Yet Harlan's operatives were relentless, staging a courtroom shooting mid-trial, a masked gunman firing blanks, screaming Isaiah's name, claiming to be his supporter, the chaos erupting, deputies rushing Isaiah to a holding cell, the gallery screaming, the media pouncing, accusing Isaiah of orchestrating the attack, the racist narrative painting him as a black warlord, the public's fleeting sympathy crushed, protests outside turning hostile, their signs demanding his conviction, the system's prejudice a guillotine, Harlan's sabotage unrelenting, his operatives tampering with Amara's laptop, erasing her case files during the chaos, her face ashen as she reported the loss, the news hitting Isaiah like a fist. Another ally crippled, her work undone, the trial postponed indefinitely. Harlan's allies in the DA's office pushing for harsher charges, the media claiming Isaiah's supporters were a terrorist cell. The racist lies a tidal wave, the jury's bias cemented, Isaiah's hope a fading ember, the judge ordering his transfer to a maximum security prison. Blackthorn 10 miles outside Philadelphia, its reputation for brutality chilling his blood. The guard smirks as he arrived mirroring Harlan's, their slurs a daily ritual, the cell a 5 by 8 foot crypt, its flickering light mocking. His despair, the juror tampering courtroom shooting, and Amara's sabotage a triple blow, each laced with racial venom, Harlan exploiting stereotypes to bury Isaiah, the system a steel cage, Philadelphia a cauldron of hate, the trial a looming execution, Caleb's safety a prayer, Lena's dying words echoing, urging him to fight, but despair clawed, the prison's brutality a new battlefield, Harlan's mercenaries whispering through informants, their kill orders a shadow, Isaiah's wounds festering, his body weakening, the city a distant memory, its streets alive with lies, Harlan's empire untouched, his next move a spectre, Isaiah's resolve a flickering flame, his fight for justice a warrior's stand, his survival a miracle against a system that thrived on his destruction. Justice Isaiah Carter lay on a threadbare cot in Blackthorn Prison, 10 miles from Philadelphia's core, the 5 by 8 foot cell a suffocating crypt, his wounds festering, the searing pain in his side and shoulder a constant torment. The weight of Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist vendetta, a mountain on his soul, Caleb's kidnapping, Amara's sabotage, and the terrorism charges a relentless storm, the system's prejudice a steel blade, his disavowed Supreme Court judge title, a broken crown, the trial's indefinite delay a death sentence, yet Isaiah's resolve flickered, fueled by Lena's dying words, Miriam's fight and Caleb's courage, his judicial training a lifeline, his hidden identity a buried ember, its power a fading hope against a system that branded him a black warlord. The prison's concrete walls a crucible, the guards' slurs a daily lash, their batons poised with menace, each moment a gauntlet of racial hatred, the media's portrayal of him as a terrorist leader, a scourge. Blackthorn a hell where survival demanded cunning. Isaiah's legacy a fading star, yet in the yard, under a blistering 95-degree sun, he overheard inmates muttering about Harlan's influence, guards taking bribes to target prisoners, a mirror of his own framing, a spark igniting his plan to rally a protest, believing it could expose the corruption. His voice low but fierce as he recruited a group led by Tariq Ellis, a stoic inmate wronged by Harlan's precinct, their shared injustice a bond. Isaiah's hope a rising tide, convinced a prison uprising could force a retrial. His judicial mind mapping the strategy, the protest erupting in the cafeteria, 60 inmates chanting for justice. Isaiah at the helm, demanding an investigation into Harlan's bribes, their voices shaking the steel gates, a smuggled phone streaming the uprising to an activist's blog, the footage spreading online, catching the media's eye, news vans swarming Blackthorn's perimeter. Philadelphia's pulse a drumbeat, Isaiah's heart surging, believing the exposure would crack the system's armor, the public's attention a lifeline, the chant a war cry against a system that chained them. His legacy a flame rekindled, the city's conscience a battlefield he could claim. Yet Harlan's malice was a tempest, twisting triumph into chaos, and he bribed guards to unlock rival gang cells, arming them with shivs, the cafeteria erupting. And to a riot, tables splintering, blood spilling. Isaiah dodging a blade as Tariq shielded him, the protest's message drowned in screams. Harlan's media allies spinning the uprising as Isaiah's terrorist plot, the racist narrative painting him as a black instigator, the footage edited to show him inciting the carnage, the public's fleeting sympathy crushed, protests outside Blackthorn turning against him, their signs demanding his execution, Philadelphia a tinderbox, the system's prejudice a guillotine, Isaiah fighting to restore order, his judicial composure guiding his moves. But a guard's baton cracked his forearm, pain flaring, his hope fracturing. Believing he could escape the chaos, his mind racing to contact Sonia, Caleb's guardian, to ensure his son's safety. A desperate plan to slip a note through a sympathetic inmate, his hope a fragile thread, convinced he'd outmaneuvered Harlan's trap. Yet Harlan's operatives were relentless, detonating a bomb in the prison's kitchen, a deafening blast shaking Blackthorn, flames engulfing the West Wing, 12 inmates killed, their screams searing Isaiah's ears, the media blaming him, claiming he'd rigged the explosives to cover his escape, the racist lie fueling a state of emergency, Philadelphia's governor declaring martial law, checkpoints rising, the public convinced Isaiah was a terrorist leader, the prison a war zone, its survivors baying for his blood, the system's prejudice a noose, Harlan's allies in the Supreme Court issuing a final condemnation, erasing Isaiah's name from judicial records, his judgeship a myth, the disavowal broadcast on every channel, severing his last tie, leaving him a pariah, the manhunt now a national crusade, shoot-on-sight orders whispered in briefing rooms, the racial bias of venom coursing through the city, Isaiah seizing a moment in the chaos, the bomb's smoke cloaking his escape, crawling through a shattered drainpipe, his arm and wounds screaming, emerging in a muddy ditch 1 mile from Blackthorn, his body battered, believing he'd won freedom to fight, his lungs gasping in the humid air, Philadelphia's skyline a distant promise. Yet the riot, the explosion, and the Supreme Court's erasure were a triple blow, each steeped in racial hatred, Harlan twisting Isaiah's protest into a narrative of terror, the system a steel cage, the media's lies a tidal, wave Philadelphia a labyrinth of danger, Isaiah stumbling through a briar patch, the prison's sirens fading, Caleb's photo clutched in his trembling hand, Sonia's loyalty a fading hope, the trial a distant spectre, Harlan's mercenaries closing in, their drones slicing the night, the city a trap, each shadow a threat, Isaiah's wounds bleeding, his strength ebbing, his resolve a flickering flame, his fight for justice a fugitive's defiance, the system's weight a leviathan, Harlan's next move a phantom, Isaiah's survival a miracle against a machine that thrived on his destruction. Justice Isaiah Carter stumbled through a briar patch 1 mile from Blackthorn Prison, the humid 96-degree night, a suffocating veil, his festering wounds bleeding, his side and shoulder a searing torment, the echoes of the prison bomb, and Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist manhunt a relentless shadow, Caleb's safety a fragile hope, the Supreme Court's erasure and Philadelphia's martial law a steel cage, his fight for justice a fugitive's desperate cry, yet Isaiah's resolve was a tempered blade, his judicial training a compass, his hidden Supreme Court judge identity a smoldering ember, its power a final hope against a system that branded his blackness a crime, the trial a distant guillotine, Isaiah's body faltering, his arm fractured, but his heart clung to Caleb, his son's courage a beacon, the memory of Lena's blood, Miriam's coma, and Amara's sabotage a fire in his veins, each loss a scar, fueling his vow to end Harlan's empire. The bribe receipts a ghost in his mind, a key to dismantle a racist machine. Isaiah's thoughts racing, his breath ragged, the briar's thorns a testament to his endurance, a flicker of hope guiding him to rally his last allies, a small band of activists led by Sonia, Caleb's guardian, who'd evaded Harlan's mercenaries, their safe house 3 miles from the courthouse, a crumbling haven, their faces etched with defiance. Sonia's loyalty a lifeline. Isaiah believing a final stand could expose Harlan. His plan to infiltrate the courthouse and hack Harlan's laptop a reckless gambit, aiming to broadcast a confession live, his pulse hammering, convinced this could shatter Harlan's lies. His legacy a flame to rekindle, Philadelphia's conscience a battlefield he could claim. The night a canvas for rebellion, Isaiah's wounds a dull ache, his heart fixed on Caleb. The system's prejudice a storm he could weather, under a starless sky. Isaiah and Sonia's team slipped into the courthouse, a marble fortress 2 miles from City Hall. Their steps silent, Isaiah's judicial acumen guiding them past biometric locks, his fingers trembling as he plugged a drive into Harlan's laptop. Salvaged code from Zara unlocking files. A confession video surfacing. Harlan admitting to framing black professionals, rigging elections and bribing guards. The footage a bombshell. Isaiah's breath catching as he broadcast it, live on every Philadelphia newsfeed. The city's screens flashing his truth, protests erupting, thousands chanting for justice. Isaiah believing he'd defeated Harlan, his chest swelling with vindication. The public's roar a tide against the system's bias, his legacy a beacon, Philadelphia's heart a drumbeat for truth, the courthouse a sanctuary, Isaiah's fight a spark in the dark. Yet Harlan's cunning was a viper, striking from the shadows, and he triggered a security lockdown, steel gates slamming, erasing the broadcast, servers crashing. Isaiah's triumph a fleeting spark, the courthouse a trap. Sonia's face pale as she urged retreat, but Isaiah refused, his rage a furnace, determined to face Harlan, believing he could end it now, his Supreme Court judge identity a blade to wield. The system's prejudice a storm he could shatter. Isaiah storming the courtroom, the trial chamber a silent arena, finding Harlan alone, his smug grin faltering as Isaiah revealed his true title, Supreme Court Judge, the words a thunderbolt. Harlan's face draining of color, his arrogance crumbling. The revelation a seismic shock, Isaiah's voice resolute as he accused him of every crime, the election rigging, Caleb's kidnapping, the murders, Harlan's hands trembling, his denial weak, Isaiah believing he'd won, the confrontation a checkmate against a racist tyrant, the judge, alerted by the broadcast, entering with deputies, ordering Harlan's arrest for contempt, his gavel a hammer, the gallery gasping, Isaiah's hope surging, believing justice was near, yet Harlan's operatives were relentless, a squad bursting through a side door, their rifles raised, slurs, spitting, their loyalty to Harlan a twisted creed, the courtroom erupting in chaos, gunfire echoing, Isaiah diving behind a bench, his judicial training a blur of instincts, disarming one, Sonia's team counterattacking, their shouts a war cry, the deputies joining, overpowering the mercenaries, cuffing Harlan, his empire collapsing, the lockdown lifting, a backup feed restoring the confession, airing to millions, Philadelphia's streets alive with demands for reform, Isaiah's heart racing, believing he'd broken Harlan the racist, system cracking, his fight vindicated, Caleb safe with Sonia, the judge's order a triumph, yet Harlan in cuffs sneered, whispering of a deeper network, shadowy figures above him, his words a chilling hint, Isaiah's victory bittersweet, the confession a spark, but the system's roots vast, the racial bias a hydra, its heads lurking, the mercenaries' defeat a fleeting win. Harlan's allies, a spectre, the city a tinderbox, protests teetering on violence. Isaiah's body battered, his wounds bleeding, Sonia's eyes haunted, Caleb shaken, the cost of their fight a heavy toll, the broadcast, Harlan's shock, and the courtroom assault, a triple climax, each laced with racial venom. Harlan's empire built on prejudice, his framing of Isaiah a microcosm of systemic injustice, the confrontation exposing the rot, but the network hint a new shadow, Isaiah's fight a battle in a larger war, the system a leviathan, his allies dwindling, the trial's outcome uncertain, Harlan's arrest a step, not a finish line. Isaiah standing in the courthouse, dawn breaking, Philadelphia's skyline a jagged promise, his judicial identity revealed, his name a rallying cry, but Harlan's words echoed, a warning of deeper corruption. The system's bias a living beast, Isaiah's vow to protect Caleb and dismantle the machine, a fire in his chest. His survival a miracle, the mercenaries' cuffs clinking, Harlan's glare a promise of retaliation, the city a crucible, each corner a threat. Isaiah's fight for justice, a warrior's stand. His next move a gamble against a system that thrived on his destruction. Justice Isaiah Carter stood outside Philadelphia's courthouse as dawn broke. The humid 90-degree air, heavy with the weight of his wounds, his side and shoulder a dull ache, his fractured arm throbbing, the scars of Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist vendetta etched into his soul, Caleb's trembling hand in his, Sonia's weary gaze a silent vow, the city's skyline a jagged wound after the courtroom showdown, Harlan's arrest, and the broadcast that exposed his empire, a hard-won victory against a system that weaponized Isaiah's blackness, his Supreme Court judge identity, now a public lance, its edge dulled by a trial that dissolved, the terrorism and assault charges dropped, yet the cost a pyre of losses, Lena's blood, Miriam's coma, Amara's sabotage, and a city fractured by hate, Isaiah's legacy teetering, the media's racist narratives, terrorist labels, and election rigging lies a lingering venom. Philadelphia's protests a volatile mix of hope and fury, their chants demanding reform, Isaiah's name a beacon, but his heart heavy. Caleb's haunted eyes a mirror of trauma, his college dreams scarred by kidnapping, the safe house a memory of fear. Sonia's resolve a flicker in the storm, the system's prejudice a hydra, its heads lurking, Isaiah's fight a spark, not a blaze. Harlan's conviction swift, a life sentence in a federal prison 8 miles away, the judge's gavel a hollow echo, Isaiah's reinstatement as Supreme Court judge a bitter triumph, the court's apology a formality, their earlier disavowal a wound that festered, the city's reform teetering, protests met with batons, the media's narrative shifting, some lauding Isaiah, others reviving racist tropes, his blackness a target, his reinstatement questioned, whispers of tokenism cutting deep, Isaiah's allies stretched thin, Sonia's warnings of backlash a constant hum, the weight of leadership a leviathan, Caleb's nightmares a nightly reminder of their cost, yet Isaiah launched a reform initiative headquartered 2 miles from the courthouse to combat systemic racism, appointing Sonia as his deputy, her tenacity a steel spine, their mission to dismantle the networks Harlan served, a vow to honor Lena's sacrifice, Miriam's fight, and the inmates lost in Blackthorn's inferno. Each death a debt Isaiah carried, his office a Spartan command center, maps and files charting corruption. His speeches at rallies igniting thousands, his voice raw but unyielding, urging Philadelphia to rise. The initiative's first investigations, exposing dirty cops, their bribes tied to Harlan's old receipts, a step toward justice, Isaiah believing he'd ignited a movement, his chest swelling with purpose, the city's pulse a fragile hope, Caleb's tentative smile a faint return, Sonia's reports showing progress, the system's cracks widening, reform a distant star, yet Harlan's final whisper in the courtroom, a hint of a deeper network gnawed at Isaiah, the system's bias a shadow that grew, the reform initiative a spark, not a fire. Philadelphia's streets tense, protests clashing with riot police, the media's racist undertones resurfacing, Isaiah's fight a marathon, not a sprint, his reinstatement a hollow crown, the system's prejudice a living pulse, each step a gamble, his allies dwindling, the network's reach a specter. 2 weeks after Harlan's conviction, Isaiah received an anonymous letter at his office, slipped under the door, his fingers trembling as he opened it. A single page revealing Harlan was a pawn in a secret network rigging judicial appointments to suppress black judges, a shadow cabal of senators, prosecutors, and corporate magnates, their names coded, their reach spanning the nation, the letter, warning of their plan to silence reformers, Harlan's role a fragment, his death in prison staged, a lethal injection masked as suicide. The news breaking hours later, Harlan found lifeless, the official report a lie, Isaiah's gut screaming murder, the letter a bombshell, his blood chilling, the implications a tsunami, the system's rot. Deeper than he'd dreamed, Racial injustice a machine with endless gears, the Cabal's power a spectre, Isaiah's initiative now a target, his investigations a pinprick against a colossus, Caleb's safety a prayer, Sonia's face grim as she analyzed the letter, finding encrypted clues, names like phantoms, the conspiracy a labyrinth, Philadelphia's reform a fragile dream, the city's streets a battleground, protests swelling, the media's racist lies a noose, Isaiah's fight a war, not a battle, his Supreme Court title a double-edged sword, his speeches a call to arms, yet the Cabal's reach was a shadow. Their next move a phantom, Isaiah's vow to expose them a fire, his heart pounding with dread and defiance. The letter's truth, a burden, his survival a miracle, the city a crucible, each dawn a challenge, the Cabal's revelation a shattering climax, a twist that flipped Isaiah's victory into a new war, racial injustice a hydra with unseen heads, Harlan's death a cover, the system's prejudice a fortress, Isaiah's initiative a spark in the dark, Caleb's hand in his a lifeline, Sonia's resolve a mirror. The fight for justice a marathon, not a sprint. The conspiracy a spectre, Isaiah's judicial stature a beacon, his speeches a rallying cry, Philadelphia's skyline a promise and a threat. His wounds a reminder of the cost, his fight a warrior's stand, the system's weight a colossus, Isaiah's heart whispering Caleb's name, his vow to protect him and dismantle the Cabal, a flame against a system that thrived on his destruction. Isaiah Carter's Odyssey and Justice in the Balance exposes the brutal machinery of systemic racism, revealing how institutions exploit prejudice to silence black voices. His battle against Sergeant Victor Harlan's racist framing, despite crushing losses, teaches unyielding resilience. Isaiah's hidden Supreme Court judge identity, unveiled to topple Harlan, underscores the power of truth against a tide of lies. The story lays bare the system's betrayal, from rigged juries to media smears. Yet Isaiah's reform initiative proves one person's defiance can spark change. Caleb's bravery and Lena's sacrifice highlight the human toll of fighting injustice, reminding us victories carry scars. The shocking revelation of a Cabal rigging judicial appointments to suppress black judges warns that racism is a hydra, its heads regenerating unless confronted relentlessly. Isaiah's fight urges us to challenge corrupt systems, amplify marginalized voices, and persist despite setbacks. It's a call to recognize our role in dismantling racist structures through advocacy or awareness. The struggle for justice demands endurance, but every action counts. What racist system have you seen silence the truth, and how will you fight it? Comment below, hit like, subscribe, and share to spread Isaiah's battle. Thank you for joining this journey. May you find courage to confront injustice daily.